BXB. It's in the game!
When Hideo Kojima was ousted by Konami from Konami and the Metal Gear franchise, one of two options presented itself: the complete and utter ceasing of all Metal Gear related products, or, as many feared, Konami trying to continue to produce Metal Gear games within that franchise without Hideo Kojima's input, stylings, creative processes, and some would argue genius. Now, I won't profess to be the world's biggest Metal Gear fan. I've dabbled throughout the years on the PlayStation games and the more recent Metal Gear number 5, but I've never been a massive lover of the franchise or the series, and I don't think I've ever beaten a single game. So the lore of Metal Gear hasn't been the most sort of sacrosanct to me, not been the most important element of the games. But boy oh boy does Metal Gear Survive kick off with some batshit crazy, mad, bonkers lore to do with alternate dimensions and hell dimensions and wormhole technology and all kinds of things in this attempt to set up what they call a pseudo-historical sort of spin-off of the Metal Gear franchise based around survival gameplay. Now, survival gameplay is incredibly hot right now on every platform going. And what we have here with Metal Gear is this setup that puts us on this sort of hell dimension called Dite, which is filled with these sort of crystalline zombie enemies. It then gives us a strict, stringent survival mechanic in which we have to scavenge and get together the raw materials to construct weaponry and resource gathering mechanics to survive on this planet while also going through sort of a story mode. And it's fine. The setup is fine, and like I said, because I'm not too bothered about where Metal Gear comes from that original vision, I wasn't too hurt by this sort of departure, this sidestep, and I think, to be honest, Konami does enough to give us a reason why we are going through these events. I think the bigger problem is that this is, gameplay-wise, such a massive departure from that stealth action gameplay of Metal Gear, including those kind of crazy, camp, over-the-top sort of looks at Western culture through this Japanese lens that we got from the story in the main Metal Gear games, that this game just feels weird to me. In addition to the strange sort of step that they've taken away from that core formula, we have a game peppered with microtransactions. Now, this game has been released as quasi-budget price point. However, even then, I feel like this game would be much better positioned as a free-to-play title with microtransaction support throughout, which is already actually there and often presented in somewhat insidious ways, just embedded within menus rather than sort of put on the sort of the main menu. They're in the in-game menus, and to be honest, what you're going to be doing a lot of in Metal Gear, what you'll be spending a lot of your time playing in Survive, are the menus. You'll be digging through inventory menus, you'll be digging through crafting menus and research menus, you'll be scouring maps. You'll be spending so much time doing that because of the pressures that are put on you in Survive. You have a constantly and rapidly depleting thirst and health meter, which means even when you're trying to fight enemies and complete quests and get out there into the wilds of Dite, you're constantly having to hunt and scavenge for water. And obviously this is a survival game, so you expect an element of this, but the speed in which these trackers deplete is ridiculous. It makes the game experience quite uncomfortable and not exactly fun. I found what it did for me was actually sort of make me stagnate my development and my desire to push forward through the story, because I was so busy trying to stockpile resources. They make it really difficult, for example, just to get clean water at the start of the game. You won't get this sort of ability to refine clean water from dirty water until quite far in, which means you're going to have to do this risk and reward thing of, do I drink dirty water and therefore get sick, which affects my abilities. It's an interesting conundrum, and while the Fox engine that's being used here looks pretty nice, and I played it predominantly on the X but also on the S just to see what it looked like, everything looked fine. It doesn't really stand out as a gorgeous set piece. I just found that the world was quite dull. it's got this ring of dust around it, and the dust is a way of gating your progress early on to keep you in the earlier environments. Once you get your oxygen tank and going further into the dust, you'll find though that the dust obviously obscures distances, which makes the visuals quite sort of bland and boring and nondescript in a lot of the time, and lacking the kind of the story charm of the main Metal Gear games. When you're using this engine, while the engine is fine, but without that charm and that cast of kind of compelling characters, you find a very dry and somewhat boring experience. And the predominant form of gameplay that you'll find in Metal Gear Survive is this sort of crafting on the fly mechanic, coupled with some very basic, predominantly melee combat using your sort of crafted weaponry. There's a whole variety of different weapons you can craft, and you will find ranged weapons as you get further into the game. However, you have to ask yourself the question when you're playing this game, are you going to get that much further in? I put tens of hours into this game. I didn't beat it. I didn't find myself compelled to finish it. The story didn't drag me through it and make me want to find out what was going on. I actually think the survival elements of crafting and scavenging are quite fun, but they are punished with those meters constantly depleting. You just don't have the fun and the freedom to go out there and explore because of those restraints. There is a co-op mode here, though it isn't really a full survival mode in co-op. It's more like wave-based horde mode, where you're just fending off lots of the zombies and putting up encampments and using resources to try and defend against them. Obviously, being a survival game like this, we've got quite a lot of base management, and I think that's fine. It's just kind of tedious. Obviously, you're having to defend your base and then build your base and get survivors to your base and things like that. And as the game progresses, there's more and more systems and more time you will spend looking at those drab, poorly designed, not well thought out menus, which also surface microtransactions at you. It's just a bit of an egregious cash-in. And I can't say I had a huge amount of fun playing this. I can see certain gamers enjoying their time with Metal Gear Survive. To me, however, it was just a bit of a trudge, and it wasn't that compelling, and it didn't have the charm that, of course, Hideo Kojima brought to Metal Gear in the first place. So because of all of that, I'm going to give Metal Gear Survive 2 out of 5 stars.
BXB. It's in the game.